The word cult can be applied to all sorts of things. Why, I've been called a cult many times in the past. At least that's what I think they said anyway. But especially when it comes to gaming. Some games may sell poorly, but end up becoming cult classics, for instance. Some titles specifically feature cults, or are all about cults, and some gamers flock to buy the latest FIFA every year like they're some sort of digital football-hugging cult. But some games are actually made by cults. If we wanted to find one of those, however, we'd have to steer well clear of libelous modern-day sci-fi religions and go all the way back in time. A time before video games were a twinkle in EA's eye. Back to 1974. It was in this year, in the sleepy town of Burtonport, County Donegal, that the Atlantis Commune set up camp. Run by a woman named Jenny James, and housing up to 30 people at a time, the locals in Burtonport would often refer to them as the Screamers, on account of the fact they would go out into their yard all hours of the day and attempt to scream away their issues with what they called primal therapy.
I don't like it!
And as you can well imagine, the residents of Burtonport weren't altogether thrilled with this development. It wasn't until 1980 that the Screamers finally left Atlantis House, splitting the group into various chapters. Some of them ended up in Colombia, expanding the commune up to 60 people, and as of 2007, they were still screaming away on the other side of the planet, while some others ended up on a fishing boat, presumably spending the rest of their lives screaming at salmon.
Scream abuse at each other!
Back in County Donegal, things were getting back to normal at Atlantis House, and things were nice, quiet, and far less screamy than they had been over the past years. But it seemed that Atlantis House was a magnet for the weird, because in 1982, just 2 years after the screaming hippies had packed their bags and booked a flight, another cult decided that County Donegal was to be their home, and Atlantis House, once more, became the heart and home of strange happenings. The Silver Sisterhood shifted their group from Yorkshire and came knocking on the doors of Atlantis House with their own good book of weird beliefs. Led by the mysterious Miss Martindale, whose name is equally important and not important, because she is a key figurehead in all of this. But she constantly changes her name, and sometimes other people are called Miss Martindale and she calls herself something else entirely. If that makes you confused, then you're probably in roughly the same mindset as the people who join these cults in the first place. So, at least we're thematically in sync. The Sisterhood ran a patriarchal society. They believed God was a woman, and they also believed that the matriarchy was soon to enter a golden age. They welcomed all sexes into their fold, so long as they believed in the Silver Sisterhood's doctrines and ways of life. Miss Martindale was the head of the household, and all other women who came to stay at the commune were named maids. This was, apparently, the will of the goddess, which seems like a very easy way to waive away any workers' rights. So I hope there's no AAA publishers watching this right now. We don't want to give them any more ideas.
EA cults.
Part of the rules within the house were the maids had to curtsy whenever in Miss Martindale's presence. They were to have 3 meals a day at strict times, plastic was never used for anything, and electricity was outlawed. You may rightly be asking yourself right now, Larry, how on earth is any of this going to involve games development? Well, hold on to your tinfoil hats and grab your voodoo dolls, because this is where things take an even weirder turn. Over the years, the Silver Sisterhood began to steer away from religion and instead began to morph into a sort of kinky Victorian boarding school. A place where young women could pay to go and stay in a place with strict rules, old school education, and even corporal punishment. Their entire way of life was built around the standards of 1800s living. The St. Bride's School was open for business, but unsurprisingly, they weren't exactly raking in the cash. It must be a pretty hard sell when all you're offering people is the chance to learn Latin and get a smack on the backside of the cane. So they opened up St. Bride's to other ventures, period pieces that would make themselves and sold within their own gift shop. But among all these period-specific trinkets, something else was being sold. Video games. You may have already put two and two together here, and you're wondering how an 1800s-themed household with no electricity or plastics managed to do this. And, well, it seems their rules weren't quite as strict as Miss Martindale, or as she was now known, Marianne Scarlett, would have you believe. Because, according to an interview with Crash magazine, someone by the name of Priscilla Langridge bought a microcomputer through the doors, and instead of ouncing the woman for her heathen ways, she sort of just went along with it. Well, that's what she says at least. But whether it's true or not is anyone's guess. Regardless, from then on, St. Brides was in the games-making business. Text-adventure games specifically, written using Gilsoft's Quill and Illustrator. Marianne Scarlett, or whatever she was calling herself that week, created their first game and released it in 1985, The Secret of St. Brides. Capitalising on the known weirdness of the school in general, this game saw you attempting to make it through the 1800s, but not 1800s, schoolhouse in order to find a secret amulet hidden somewhere. If you were successful, you could even send details of your success to the school itself in order to be awarded with a certificate. Yeah, not the most exciting prize, but it's something. Reviews at the time were fair to middling, receiving 5s and 6s across the board, with most reviewers complaining about the tight and restrictive language you need to use in order to get anywhere, which I suppose is quite fitting for such a strict school. They went on to release several other text adventures that improved on the original's formula, from the Snow Queen, which centred on a female lead, to the Dog Boy, which was about a boy who was a dog, of course. The most interesting of all these games, however, has to be Jack the Ripper. St. Brides even had themselves a publisher this time around, with CRL pushing the game out onto shop shelves. Or at least they would have done, had the game not been banned by the morally righteous brigade. You see, Jack the Ripper was apparently so gory for its time that the BBFC ended up rating the game an 18. This being pretty early in computing history, the idea of a game being made for adults was one that shocked and appalled the nation. Or at least W.H. Smith, who refused to stock the damn thing. And what was the reason for the 18 certificate? I mean, this was a text adventure after all. Well, that was due to a couple of gory images that would splash onto the screen every now and then. Certainly nothing that could match the slasher films of the time. CRL later admitted that they tried to use the 18 certificate controversy to drum up sales, but that kinda backfired when they couldn't even sell the bloody thing. You live and learn, eh? So what happened to Miss Martindale, or Marianne Scarlett, or Dr. Incognito as she's probably now known? Well, a lot of that is subject to rumour and second guessing, but from what we can gather of the details since, after the closure of St. Brides, Miss Martindale moved to America and may now be known as Mary Gilliman, wife of John Gilliman, the director of the 1970s King Kong no less. There's evidence that she still has her head in the alternative lifestyle too, putting on a stage show for one night titled From Crazy to Sane, or Am I?, in which she talks about her journey from manic madness to receiving spiritual training and insights from disembodied mystical and magical realms. I guess some things never change. Hello you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and until next time friends, I'm missing you already.